What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the LA Soccer Hub Show. My name is Gio Garcia. Today, we're talking Coachella Valley Invitational, talking about preseason. I haven't had a chance to go out there. I've been seeing all the tweets, all the Instagrams, all the social media. I wish I was out there. I've been with family the last week. I've been working, doing a lot of things. Unfortunately, I feel bad that I missed it. Now, I kind of have like I'm feeling a little FOMO. So hopefully next year I it, but we have someone that was there. Justin Ruderman. Justin, how you doing, my brother?
Doing well, man. Yeah, it was a good time, but definitely a long drive out there. So,
Yeah, because you're in Palm Springs, Coachella. It's like 2.5 hours. Talk to me. Talk to me about the experience. Like how long you were there, what day you went, what games did you watch, and everything. From the moment you got there, and everything.
mainly I was there this past weekend, which was obviously for the LAFC game against Toronto, but then it was four games throughout that whole weekend, two on each day. So got to see a bunch of teams there, and then I also went the previous Monday to see the LAFC game, which was by itself, but it was a very good game. I got to see both LAFC games and I think nine teams in total. So getting a good overall look at this league early on, seeing what stands out in preseason, and also got to look at St. Louis City in their preseason game. So before they even have their official match, and they looked good as well. So yeah, just a very fun time out there, and yeah, a good amount of fans also showed up. So it was just a fun time out in the sun, nice weather. It was really enjoyable out in Coachella.
Yeah, it was cool. It was from what I saw, it was cool that what after the game players did autographs and everything. Because typically it's a little bit more difficult, right? If you're at the Bank or BMO Stadium, now that it's called, I'm still gonna say Bank of California because I'm not used to it. But typically, I mean, you'll have every now and then. But like the one thing that I saw is like you could watch the game from the field, right? From the field level. And I think it's always cool and unique watching players from the field level because you can see, at least for me, when I first started, one of the things that kind of stood out for me is like I already knew Carlos Vela was good coming into the MLS, coming to LAFC. But once I saw him in practice and I saw him up close and how quick and how elite his left foot is, it just put things so much into perspective. And I don't know if you caught on to that, or not just Vela, but any other player that stood out to you. They're like, huh, like seeing him fill up, we are like, I knew he was good, but now just being that close and seeing that close. Talk to me. Did you see anything like that, or maybe the opposite? You'll be like, oh man, maybe this player is not as good as I thought.
No, it's a fantastic point you make, because I'm always somebody who likes being high up and looking down on the field from like a tactical view, and so you can see the formations that teams are playing more easily than from a field level. But as you say, in the field level, you get the opposite. You get the close view where you can see the technical ability of players and how good they really are on the ball, passing it and moving it around. Because from far distances, they make it look easy a lot of times, and you think maybe I could do that too. But then you get close and you realize, wow, that player is really, really good. I saw it with the whole front three of LAFC. I think Vela, obviously, nobody questions that one. His technical ability is always there, but Bouanga, he's really quick with his feet, always moving the ball. He loves this little uh, not a Cruyff turn necessarily, but a cutback turn where he brings the ball back and moves it the other way really, really quickly away from defenders, and it works constantly. Stipe Buke also very, very good with his feet. It was the first look I got at him, obviously, in this preseason, so that was good to see from him as well. But yeah, for fans who don't normally get to be on that field level, it's really, really good in Coachella, because you can sit wherever you want. They do have the bleachers if you want to get a little higher, or you can stay on field level if you wanted to.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. How much were tickets for fans? Well, like, was it? I'm assuming pretty affordable.
It was, I think it was around. It depended on the day, right? So it depended on the team that who was playing and things like that. But I think it was around $50 per day, and that included both games in that
Both
day.
games. Okay, that's not bad. 25
So
bucks a game, I guess.
yeah, and
So
then there was
what
VIP as well, which is
well, it's
sorry. I
okay.
was
Talk to me about that.
yeah.
What did the VIP? Did you get closer? What was it? Did you get drinks? What did
No,
did
yeah, it
you
was just
happen
like
to know?
drinks and food, and I think they gave away some souvenirs and things that weren't available otherwise. But that could range again. It was depending on the day. So I think for LAFC, it got to like $1,000, which made no sense to any of us. But for other games, it was
A
like 200,
thousand
right?
dollars.
Right,
Jesus.
but it didn't make yeah, because you also got to meet the players, like, they would walk to the VIP area after, they were as you mentioned, they were signing for pretty much everybody, but the VIP people kinda got to have a little conversation with them, get to know
Okay.
players a little bit. So, it was a nice experience, and I think for, the ones that were 250 bucks, probably worth it, but for the days that when LAFC was there where it was 1,000, yeah, I don't think it was worth it, just get your autographs on the side.
Yeah, $1,000. That's a little steep just for a couple hours. But look, if you got the money, you got the bankroll, go right ahead, and you can have a conversation with Carlos Vela, whoever, one of your favorite LAFC players there. I mean, it's priceless. Let's put it that way. It's priceless, right? But no, that's cool. So outside of that, like, was the setup nice? Everything was the feel nice. The setup. Did they have multiple fields next to each other? Talk to me about the view. The obviously, I know you just talked about a little bit about the fan experience, but talk to me about the whole setup, drinks, food, and everything that was around the field and stuff.
Yeah, so as far as the field, incredibly nice, beautiful grass, and that's why they played it in Coachella. I think obviously, they could have played it at BMO Stadium, but they only have one field there, and they don't want to ruin that field. They could have played it at Dignity Health Sports Park, where they have a bunch of fields, but a lot of them are turf fields, the bigger ones, and then some of them maybe not as quite as good grass there. But Coachella, they have multiple fields, and the grass is pristine. So yeah, it was very well set up there. As far as food and things were limited, there was like one food stand had chicken and burgers and things. So there was food, but nothing too special. Beers and whatever else you needed as well was available. But yeah, it was kind of a cozy feeling when you walked in. It almost felt like a country club. It is the Empire Polo Club, so it
Okay,
similar
makes sense.
vibes. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been there. I've been out there. So no, that's cool. I really like it. I'm really definitely gonna try to go there next year. I'm assuming this is gonna thing. Is this a thing you expect them to have for future years and stuff? Give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so. I don't see why not. It seemed to be a very good training session for all the teams. All the coaches and players that I talked to really enjoyed the games. They thought that they were, getting a lot out of their preseason. And if you just bring a bunch of teams to one area in Coachella, then you can produce a bunch of games against multiple teams and get a good look at the league. So I think it's really good not only for the fans but for the players as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm really like it. I know a couple weeks I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna go. Because I kind of knew I had things going on, but now I feel like I definitely feel like I missed out. But it's cool. I'm excited for next year. I'm excited for the season. Oh, give me a second. Looks like someone's calling me. But I'm excited for the season. I'm excited for what's to come because there's just so much going on. 10 days away from the season opener at the Rose Bowl, LAFC versus LA Galaxy. The 2023 season is going to start off with a bang. I want to talk to you about a little bit more of the players. You mentioned Stipe. Talk to me about him. I haven't been able to see him. I've seen his highlights, but tell me what you like about him and what stood out to you about him specifically.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Stipe. I think he's very, very good. Obviously, still young, and so it's the question of is he going to start immediately for LAFC? And I think that should be the goal. As I mentioned earlier, very, very good technically on the ball. He's always looking for that final pass. He loves it. He was on the left side mostly for LAFC in the preseason. He did move over to that right side, and occasionally up top, we know, Steve loves that fluid front three, and without a proven number nine, it's easier for those three to be fluid. It was mostly Denny Bouanga and Vela at the nine, but Stipe, yeah, mostly on the left, went to the right as well. And really, it stood out to me because he fit in seamlessly, right? It didn't seem like he was learning the system or trying to figure out how to link up with Bouanga or Vela. It seemed like he already knew. It seems like they had a very good chemistry from the start, which is pretty rare, especially when you're a younger player. So I really, really did like what I saw from him. And I think that front three can be really, really dangerous. We don't know if there will be a number nine coming in, soon. Maybe it will come. Maybe we'll have to wait for the summer. But yeah, Stipe looked very, very good. Always looking for that final pass. Always looking to take on his defender and make things happen. He doesn't like passing backwards, it seemed to me. So, very exciting player for sure for LAFC fans and one for the future.
That's good. So was the starting three Stipe, Vela, and Boanga? Those are like three
Yeah.
for both of the games, or did they switch it
So
up?
Right. So on Monday, those three were the starters, and then on Saturday, Apoku started instead of Buke.
Oh, that makes sense. And then they played St. Louis, and who was the other team that they played?
No, they played DC and Toronto FC. So against
Toronto FC. Okay.
DC, yeah, DC was on Monday where Buke started, and then Toronto FC, of course, meeting up again with Bob Bradley, was on Saturday.
Yeah, because I did see that. I said Lorenzo Insigne or Insigne. Chiellini took the photo, and then I'm forgetting the other Italian
Bernadeschi,
player.
yeah.
Yeah, Bernardeschi. They took the photo together, so that's cool. We're starting to see that, and then just the influence. Yeah, I think it's gonna be exciting season for Stipe and see what he can produce because we already know what Mahala can do, right? We already know what Mahala can do, and obviously there was this where Chicho is going to be a big miss. I mean, where everybody's pretty clear on that. Unfortunately, that they weren't able to get they were restricted on what they could do, what LAFC could do. Um, and yeah, and obviously there was that the other what was the other winger from Chelsea that obviously the deal broke down or he didn't want to come. How do you say his name? Pierre
Pierre-Emerick
Aubameyang?
Aubameyang.
Yeah, I can't say his name. Um, that would have been a massive, massive signing because Chelsea was reportedly going to pay all his salary and all these different things, but I guess he did not want to come play for LAFC. But now we get to see. You talked about how fluid that the up the top three because I think to me one player that I saw last year and that really obviously that did so much for LAFC in a short time was Bouanga, and I think he will probably play as that false nine, even though they'll have that rotating. And to me, I think he could have a really big year for LAFC because we've seen how at times to me him and Chicho had similar traits. I know they kind of play different styles, but like in the way that they can carry a team and they can
Mhm.
Bouanga is a big physical athlete. He could move around the defenses and stuff like that. And I think he's gonna have a big year now that he's gonna have to carry most of the load. And and if Vela does the same thing he did last season, I don't think he needs to be the goal scorer. If he's more of a facilitator, and I think he's okay with that. And then we know Vela can take over a game and score an 18-yard, 19, 20-yard goal and have the sum of his magic. But I think if Bouanga you have Mahala and Stipe carry more of that workload, and Vela can just be more the facilitator. I think you're still going to have a pretty solid offensive game right there, and then you still have whether they sign another DP or whatever, if they get another player from now to the start of the season or to the end of the transfer window, which I think it's April 24th, April 20 something for the MLS. If they don't get anybody now, then you still got the summertime, and we've seen what LAFC what did last year in the summertime. Signed Chiellini, signed Bell, and then in the final one, they ended up bringing Bouanga. So we've seen what LAFC can do, and I think if they don't start off with the DP or anything like that, I think to me, without even seeing a preseason, but just seeing from what they have on paper and seeing some of the highlights on Instagram, I think they will be okay. And I think come summer transfer window, then they can reinforce what they need to add.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. Obviously, there is no DP spot open right now, so it makes things difficult. And obviously, with the financials, that's why Chicho had to go, as you mentioned. So it does make bringing in a player difficult. But as you mentioned, there's players ready to go, and Bouanga is set to have an incredible year. He scored all three of LAFC's goals in this Coachella Invitational. He is that main guy, and he looked very good at the end of last season, but he was just getting integrated in the team. Now he's had a whole offseason, and he is that guy along with Carlos Vela. It will be interesting to see how that front three works, because I agree with you, Boanga will probably be in that false nine mainly. But I think he's just going to float a lot to the right side with Carlos Vela coming, or basically underlapping Carlos Vela, so that Vela can come inside more, drop a little deeper, play that facilitator role that you were describing. And so almost becomes a 10 with two strikers at times, I think, in their attacking phase. And I think, yeah, that's exactly what Steve wants, is that fluidity with that front three, so that even Boanga, who is the nine, he's mostly moving on to one of the wings more often than not.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the thing for Bouanga. Let's talk about the goalkeeper. How much playing time did John McCarthy get? How much did the backup from England get? I'm trying to look at it for his name. Um,
Eldon Jakupovic. Yeah. This is a very interesting topic in my opinion, because
Mhm.
everyone just kind of assumes that John McCarthy is the starter, but to me that isn't a done deal, because he is a good goalkeeper, but he is a penalty specialist, right? And that's why he shined in MLS Cup, and what became the hero was because he did it in the penalty shootout. He did have one fantastic save in extra time that should be recognized, but that is what John McCarthy is really, really good at, penalties. And we all knew it before MLS Cup. So whether he's still the starter is a question, because, as you mentioned, Jakupovic came in from Everton, who has the European pedigree, he has that experience, and he is also a very good goalkeeper and a backup level goalkeeper in the MLS. So if he can, take that starting spot for McCarthy, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Each of them got a game in the Coachella Invitational. Jakupovic started the full game against DC, and McCarthy played the full game against Toronto. So it'll be interesting to see who starts against San Diego Loyal this Saturday at BMO Stadium, and maybe that will tell us who will be the starter going forward. But yeah, I'll definitely try and ask Steve about it, because that is something that I have my eye on as well. Because to me, it's a toss up at this point.
Yeah, the one thing that stood out to me about Eldon, is it Eldon?
Eldon, yeah.
Um, is when we went to the his introductory press conference with a bunch of the off-season signings, is how tall he is, right? He is a little bit older. He's in late 30s, 35, 37.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing that I would at a keeper, look, keepers can play until they're 40. That's proven. I think the only thing to me on Eldon is how his mobility is, because I'm pretty sure John McCarthy's the quicker one. He may not have his, I don't know, you probably tell me the height difference, but he may not be as tall as Eldon, but I think he's quicker, and that's what I see in Eldon. I has him on the height, but I haven't seen his mobility or anything like that. Is there any concern on his mobility, or was he able to get up and down, go for the saves, even though he is an older goalkeeper?
Yeah, and no, it's a good point, because McCarthy can probably get down to the floor quicker than Jakupovic would. The two goals were basically like they were very close to him and on the ground, so you can't really expect him to stop them either. Anyway, the two goals that were scored on Jakupovic, so I don't really think either of them were his fault. So it's really hard to judge based off of those. But like his leadership skills were really, really obvious to me. He was, yelling at his back line the entire game, basically. Not to say McCarthy doesn't do that as well, but it's like he's a little bit older. He has a little bit more of that experience. So yeah, I do think that the age is definitely a factor, the height is definitely a factor, and the experience. And you just put all of those together and see which one you think comes out on top. For me, I probably would start Jakupovic on the first game, just and see how it goes. I'm not saying that that's a definitive thing going forward. And honestly, probably Steve will start McCarthy just because he knows him a little bit better. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if it went either way.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point, because even when you mentioned that earlier, even when I saw Eldon, um, I was like, okay, he has some size and everything, and I was like, yeah, he's definitely coming here to compete for that number one job. And so we'll see what, I don't even think Maxime Carpo, depending, because the thing about goalkeepers, at least for me, it's like you don't want to have a rotating door, and we've seen that LAFC did that the first 4 years of Bob Bradley, and you see how big of a mess. I don't want to go too far back with Vermeer and what was the guy that ended up going to Minnesota? It was
Tyler
originally
Miller.
Tyler Miller. So you kind of had like a rotating door. I don't think you wanted to do that again, or you want to go through that. So right. So say if McCarthy is the guy or Eldon is the guy, you kind of want to let them write it out. But if you have a scenario where both of the guys are playing, they're playing just average or below average, and I think that's a question for concern, because we've seen videos of Maxime Crepeau be in the locker room and all these different things, but I think you want to have a solid goalkeeper, and then whenever Maxime Crepeau can be ready, you give him a nice opportunity to try to win a spot back. So I think that's going to be very interesting to see how Steve handles that situation. And because I think the one thing that we knew about LAFC, regardless of what was going on last season, or some of the struggles that they had, is just like, hey, they have a solid goalkeeper, which they
Mm-hmm.
didn't have the years. This year, because of Maxine's heroics, putting his body on the line, missing the World Cup, giving the team a chance to win MLS Cup final. Obviously, he ended up getting injured and everything like that. So I think he still deserves to get a shot whenever he's ready. But being game ready is a whole different thing than practice and stuff like that. So we'll have to see when Maxime Crepeau can be ready. But yeah, I think it's either John McCarthy and Eldon. It's going to be a very, very close call. Just seeing just Eldon's demeanor and just how mature, obviously, he was and how he spoke. I remember how he spoke, and this guy's coming here to be the starter. Like that's just the sense that I got. That's just the sense that I got. And I think the thing that LAFC likes is they like to have competition in every spot. Look, there's already some spots I already spoken for, like Carlos Vela, right? No one's necessarily, unless he's injured or having bad game. We've even seen Steve Schulno kind of, sub him out, and I think it was an El Tráfico matchup in the playoffs. But I think for the most part, everybody outside of Carlos Vela spot is the only one spoken for, and every other spot is what LAFC likes to have in competition, and that's what you have when you have a good club. You have competition in every position. So it's going to be very interesting how that motivates John McCarthy and how that motivates all the other players around. Talk to me about the defense. What were your thoughts on the defense and how were they able to perform? I know, look, it's preseason, just a couple games, but what did you like?
Yeah. Well, the first game, the main center back partnership that we got to look at was Long and Murillo together, because
Mm.
they played two halves together, one in each game, so a full 90 together over the two games, and I thought they looked really good together. I thought they complemented each other's game very, very well. Obviously, we know that Murillo is the type of center back that likes to step into midfield. He likes to win a ball mainly with his head, sometimes with his foot. He likes to put his arm into the back of the midfielders or the opponent strikers, be a physical presence in that midfield and step forward, which means you have to have a second center back who's going to stay behind him and sweep things up and make sure that everything is safe if he misses a ball. And that is the job of Aaron Long. And we saw, Chiellini play that same role last year. And so that's why I don't think you're going to very often see Aaron Long start with Chiellini. You're going to see one of the either Long or Chiellini start with Murillo. And then probably one of those two start with Maldonado as well, who we did get a look at. Maldonado, the biggest thing that happened with him was he made one really, really strong challenge in the middle of the field, won the ball absolutely cleanly. Both him and Pedro Santos locked ankles and went, bang right on the ball together from opposite angles. Maldonado was just stronger, and Pedro Santos went off injured as a result, but Maldonado got booked for it. So poor refereeing, but it showed, the strong mentality that Maldonado has as central defender. He's going in to make that very strong challenge. He's not gonna, mess about. And so I think you're probably going to see him start in the Champions League, maybe next to Long, maybe next to Chiellini. I don't know. And then maybe you'll see Long more in the MLS because, he is MLS experienced. And so I think it'll be a competition thing as well as a who works better with each other because, Long looked very good next to Murillo as Chiellini has done. And then Maldonado looks more similar to a Murillo type where he wants to step into the midfield and be a physical presence. And then as far as the fullbacks, Palacios and Holling said, same as always. Palencia, the new signing from Saint Etienne, Denny Boanga's buddy that came over, played on the right side, looked very, very attack minded. Always wants to, attack attack down the wing, never wants to pass backwards, always going forwards and really making things happen as a fullback. So in that sense, I might compare him for LAFC fans to a Kim Moon Hwan who wants to really get forward. Though he is still defensively solid more than Kim ever was, still is an orthodox fullback rather than a wing back. So that's my overall thoughts on the defense there.
No, that's good points. I think you mentioned. I think one thing that I mentioned last time was Aaron Long. I think it would be a negative if you look, just speaking negative in terms of pace and stuff. You pair Long and Chiellini because being at the U.S. men's national team, I noticed how Long doesn't. He's not as quick as other players coming in there. So you definitely need a big body, some quicker. Murillo is definitely one of the quickest center backs that they got, and then I know that you mentioned Maldonado, who has those similar attributes. So I'm glad you pointed that out. Look, I'm not saying that you will never see a Long and Chiellini. You may see it for like the last 5-10 minutes or something like that. but I think just certain attributes that each one has, because you're always going to need someone with a little bit more pace than the other one. Look, if both of them are faster, obviously that's a positive. But if they're not as quick, and you have another quick one which in Maldonado or Jesus Murillo, I think that's how you kind of offset just different things. And look, I think Long's experiences, obviously, Chiellini's experience goes without saying. But yeah, you still need someone that can move and be a little bit more fluid. The new signing Tillman, was he there? Was he there? Did he get any playing time? Talk to me about him. If you got playing time, tell me about what you saw. If you didn't get playing time, talk to me about the rest of the midfield.
Yeah, he came on in the second game um, against Toronto. So we in the second half. So we got maybe 30 minutes from him. He looked solid. Nothing that stood out sensational. But yeah, talked to Steve after the game. He described him as a profile eight, somebody who's very very tactical. He's obviously they knew each other back in Germany, so that's the connection between them. Um, and yeah, I think he just looked very calm, very controlled in that midfield. I think he's the backup to Kellen Acosta. I think you can
Mm.
think of him as that a profile eight who can also play that six if necessary, a more defensive minded than an attack minded player, but can still contribute going forward. Very similar to Kellen, I think, in that way. Um, and and yeah, he looked pretty good. What was interesting to me, he actually came into that eight role and pushed Cifuentes into the nine for the rest of the game,
Mm.
which was an interesting tactical tweak. Maybe Steve wants to see that going forward. Maybe he puts Sifu in the false nine at times because he's a 10, right? He drops a little bit deeper and then can be really, really creative from that area. So maybe that is a tactical idea, or maybe it was just, a preseason thing. We'll see. And then the other piece in the midfield was Emerson Heineman, who hasn't been announced as an LAFC signing. We don't know if he's going to be an LAFC signing, but Steve said he has been training with the team. He did get a few minutes in that Toronto game and looked, uh, I mean, we know Emerson Heineman, right? He's an MLS player. He's MLS caliber, in my opinion. So, again, similar to Tillman, nothing stood out, but he looked, solid. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if LAFC ended up signing him to, help their midfield depth.
Yeah, no, that I think that's because those are the I think the questions and the concerns are outside obviously the front three. With Chicho leaving, I think it's been the midfield, how thin it looks, right? And
Mhm.
also like the before these signings, I think those are the questions. How's the midfield gonna look? More in depth, to me, it's more the depth wise, because eventually one of these guys is gonna need a sub, or hopefully no injuries or anything like that. But I think this is more depth wise on the midfield than what we can see. Look, 10 days away the biggest game of the year. Starting off strong. We already know that El Trafico's games, they never, for the most part, if both teams are healthy, they never disappoint. I think there's only been one that's like was kind of boring. But outside of that, all right, let's talk about that. Leading up to El Trafico, how are you feeling as this current LAFC roster? I know there's going to be a game here this Saturday at BMO Stadium. They're going to get another crack at it for Steve Sherrill to kind of get the rest of the players. How you feeling about LAFC going into that game?
Yeah, I mean, I think LAFC are the clear favorites heading into that game. Obviously, MLS Cup winners, but a huge turnover in this offseason. But even if you look at the players that are on paper for both teams right now, LAFC have the edge, no question in my mind, especially now that LA Galaxy have officially lost Julian Araujo to Barcelona. That's a huge loss to them. I don't even know who's going to play in
Crazy
that right
story,
back.
by the way.
That is a crazy story in itself. But congratulations to the player. I'm happy for him that he was able to get the move that he wanted. But yeah, I don't even know who's going to play in that right back position for Galaxy at the Rose Bowl. Chicharito, there's a question mark, right? He came out after 3 minutes injured in their last preseason game. So hopefully, Vanny said it's just precautionary. Maybe he's going to be fine for that game. Maybe he's not. You don't know. And yeah, we'll just see how things are going. I talked to Memo Rodriguez of Galaxy about that, and he said, that they're going in with the mentality to win it, of course. But yeah, I think that it's going to be not only dominant from LAFC in the stands because of, the protests and all that, but
Ooh,
probably
bro.
Well, what do you mean? The Galaxy fans don't are protesting the game. They're not going to show up in the same numbers, right?
No,
Potentially. So
I just I just
what?
like that I just like that you brought that up. You're like, hey, by the way, they're not going to
Oh
be at
well,
the
because
stadium.
because I think it's going to be I think it's going to be pretty dominant on the field from LAFC, and it'll for sure be dominant from the fans in the
So it's
in
gonna be
the.
dominant on the field, dominant on the stands, just domination all over, right?
Well, yeah, domination in the stands for sure. Domination on the field harder to say with El Trafico, as you say. They're always crazy games, so
So
it'll
should
look.
Galaxy fans not even show up? Is this what you're saying?
No, I'm look, hey, if you want to protest, don't show up. That's for sure. Which I support all the protests,
No, I'm just
but
giving
no,
you
I
a high
mean
tag. Just giving
it's going to be a tough time. Look, Galaxy do not have their squad fully rounded yet. Greg Vanny talked about it himself. You know, they're still trying to figure out all the pieces to get into their squad. Not saying that LAFC aren't in the similar position, but LAFC have a more defined starting 11 already than Galaxy do at this point, and I think it's going to benefit them in the first game of the season.
No, make a great point. Yeah, there's definitely a lot going on with the Galaxy at this current time. Yeah, I think right now what we see, right, we see with all that turmoil with what's going on with the Galaxy front office, them wanting, Chris Klein to be fired or be exited out, the boycott, and all these different things. I think one of the things that Mike Gray mentioned is like 70% sold out. So I'm assuming that there's still going to be. I don't think those are all one-sided tickets, but I think a lot of people are still going to show up, and it's unfortunate for what's going on with the Galaxy. I mean that's just their own problems, but I think typically a game like this, your home opener, because we should remember this is Galaxy's home opener, quote unquote. But it's so much different things going on with the club that you're just like, you know, I just seem sometimes the Galaxy just are at times are just they're surrounded by chaos within the organization and with what's going on and everything. I think you look at LAFC on the other side. Um, they don't have as much chaos when it comes to like the front office and fans. Everybody seems to be together, right? And how could you not? You just won an MLS Cup, right? You just won MLS Cup trophies. You're riding high, big game, everything's together. One thing that I think I should note is these two teams. Whenever these two teams face, um, typically, because it's typically this is the first time, as we all know, this is the first time that's not a BMO or Dignity Health Sports Park, and I like that it's at a neutral location, and hopefully, maybe we can have more, maybe at SoFi Stadium next if they put grass. I know how they did grass. Let's talk about that, having a neutral location for these games, because I've been calling for that for since this rivalry started. Because of how big and everything like that. Let's talk about how the neutral site and what it means for the growth in MLS and just what it means for soccer just here in LA and how big this rivalry really is.
Yeah, no, it's a great point you made because putting a type of game like that in the Rose Bowl where it can hold 100,000 people, 90,000 people is insane, right? I mean, it's probably going to be sold out if not right about there. So, it's going to create one of the best soccer atmospheres in MLS history, I think, and it proves, and not only that, right? I think when you're launching Apple TV at the same time, you're trying to make
Mhm.
a statement to the world, right? You're trying to make a statement that this is a real league, and not only in this country, but around the world can be noticed, can be watched, and can be respected. And so to bring out 90,000 people for your opener between two of the biggest teams in your league, that really makes a statement. And yeah, if we could do it more at SoFi and things like that, it'd be fantastic. I think the only downside is you're taking a home game away from Galaxy, which I am sure they would not be happy about. So if you can find a way to balance that out for the two teams, so they're not losing their home games and things like that, that would be even better. But I think, as you mentioned, as you say, it's more important to for the league and to make this statement of how not only the support that they have, but the quality on the pitch will be there as well. I think with the two teams, you have Ricky Puig. Hopefully, you'll have Chicharito. You have Denny Boanga. You have Carlos Vela. These are the stars of MLS and can always put on a show for a game that will attract a huge audience.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's gonna be exciting. 10 days away. 10 days away, guys. So it's gonna be exciting. I mean, it's gonna be a historic game, historic One of those things that you're gonna be like, man, if you haven't, if you didn't get a ticket, definitely go. Look, if you're boycotting, hey, I understand, nothing wrong with that. But like, if you're not, definitely try to get a ticket because it's gonna be fun, and these games never disappoint. And I think for the most part, when I was looking at tickets, they're more affordable than usually because you look to try to fill out a 90,000 stand stadium. You know, the tickets got to be somewhat affordable. It's not like the bank or dignity, which is not as nothing compares more than half the size of that, right? It's probably like a quarter of a Rose Bowl. But yeah, I think it's gonna be exciting for that. 10 days away. Justin, man, I appreciate you for being on, man, giving us the insight and everything like that. I'm assuming you're gonna be at the game this weekend, and yeah, hopefully you get a chat with you and everything. But yeah, man, any last words before we let you go?
Oh man, it's just thanks for having me on. That enjoy the Coachella Invitational, and yeah, excited for this season to get back underway. The off season has been boring, so we need, besides the transfers, of course, but we need to
Yeah,
get back into some games.
yeah, that's how I'm just like, come on, let's get the games going. Let's get the games going. But yeah, well, I
Exactly.
appreciate it, Justin. So for Justin, this is Gio. We'll catch you.